The time is 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We are going to begin this evening with a presentation.
Yep.
Is Eric somewhere with us?
So,
He is.
yes, Your Honor, I asked Eric to join us this evening so he could introduce himself to the City Council, and hopefully Don can pop him up on the screen there. He's, I think, identified as Staff Kuhlenbeck there on your screen.
Sure.
Right down bottom left, Don, on right there. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, Cindy Brady's spot.
Cindy Brady Square. Hi, Eric. Can you see us?
Hello?
Hello.
Let me blow that up.
Yeah, good, Don.
Can everyone hear me?
We can,
Yes.
thank you.
Perfect. Well, I'm Eric Griffith. I'm the new Parks and Recreation Director. I started on March 30th, and I'm very excited. My wife and I are very excited to be here, and kind of a weird time right now, but hopefully I'll get to shake your guys' hands someday.
Well, thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you on our team.
Yes, very excited. That's basically all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
I don't think so. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is an appointment that I have. I'd like to reappoint Doris Marino as our representative on the Rock Island County Emergency Telephone Service Board for a full 2-year term effective April 1st, 2020. I'd be looking for the support of the council on that appointment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. I think we had a motion by Alderman Parker. Is that correct?
Alderman Waldron.
Alderman Waldron, thank you. We have a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any discussion about this appointment? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the agenda this evening?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Alderman Moyer.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the remote electronic attendance of 2nd Ward Alderman David Parker, 3rd Ward Alderman Michael Wendt, 4th Ward Alderman Dick Potter, 6th Ward Alderman Kevin Schoonmaker, 7th Ward Alderman Mike Waldron, Alderman at Large Sonia Berg at the Committee of the Whole and City Council meetings of April 7th, 2020.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion by Alderman Moyer and a second by Alderman Williams. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you for joining us remotely. So I have one addition to the agenda. I have an other that I'd like to add this evening that's to discuss a tool that is being proposed to us from the company Live Stories. So the first item on our agenda is ORA Sidewalk. Chris Mathias will be presenting that item.
Thank you, Your Honor. Calling into the meeting today, so I'm not on the voice cam, but hopefully everybody can hear me, or on the webcam, I'm sorry. Anyway, this is for the ORA sidewalk. As you know, you considered this item last week. Upon getting the information to ORA, they sent me an email. They sent an email to staff, which kind of outlines the COVID-19 I guess, issues that they've been dealing with. They've laid off 2/3 of their staff, and their volume of patients is down to about 1/3 of its usual capacity. They got a number of their doctors that are helping out or preparing to help out with the COVID-19 response as it comes into our area more fully. So what ORA is asking for is a 1-year, basically a 1-year wait on that sidewalk payment. They're asking to pay that then in 2021. That $30,000 into the sidewalk fund. So staff is recommending approval of that just because of the kind of the unique situation that we're in right now with all of our businesses.
So just so I understand clearly, Chris, they're proposing a payment of $30,000 into our fund, and that payment would come due in April of 2021. Is that correct?
Correct. It would be a 12-month stay on that. Correct.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see who said that. Perhaps if you're remoting in, would you mind telling me who you are? Because I can't tell from
Alderman Went, move to approve.
Thank you so much.
And I'll second.
We have a motion by Alderman Went and a second by Alderman Moyer.
Your Honor, could I clarify one thing?
Yes.
Chris just used a round number of 30,000. It's actually $35,696. That was what that was asked.
Okay.
So,
Alderman Went, it's $35,690?
$696.
$696. Is that your motion, just to clarify?
That's fine.
Is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Item number 2.
Thank you.
Yes? Oh, the item number 2 is Chapter 22 of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Offender Registration. Chief Gall.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before you, we have an ordinance that would be new to the city of Moline. The police department is preparing to launch a new software program called Offender Watch. This piece of software is provided to us for free of charge by the Illinois Attorney General's office, and it's a national database that helps us provide a digital platform to efficiently and effectively input, track, and store offender data. As part of that agreement with Offender Watch, they asked that we adhere to the state statute and implement the fee structure as provided by the Sex Offender Registration Act and the Murder and Violent Offender Against Youth Registration Act. The city of Moline currently has 105 registered sex offenders and 12 violent offenders. And although this statute has been in existence for quite some time, the Moline Police Department has not been collecting that state statute authorized fee. So in order for us to participate in this program and get stuff in running, we would like to implement that fee of $100 for initial registration and $100 for annual renewal for sex offenders, $20 for violent offender registration, and $10 for annual renewal. And staff would recommend approval of this ordinance.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Alderman Moyer. Is there a second?
Second, Alderman Went.
Thank you. Second by Alderman Went. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Chief Gall. The next item is South Park COP Addendum.
Thank you, Mayor. On March 21st of 2020, I received a call from Allied Security Regional Managers in New York to inform me that South Park Mall was closing due to the stay-at-home order issued by Governor J.B. Pritzker in the state of Illinois. Because of that, they expressed a desire to end the police coverage at South Park Mall since that facility would be closed. We have a contract or agreement with them that covers assignment of uniformed police officers to South Park Mall. So in consultation with our corporate counsel, we negotiated a temporary stay of that agreement, and we would give them a $2,442.31 credit towards their future invoice. So they've currently paid, they pay quarterly. They've currently paid January to March. So since this occurred in March, we'd give them a little bit of a credit. At the time that I wrote this resolution, we were still unsure how long it would last. And so the executive order has been extended through April 30th. And so basically it would be $2,442.31 per full week. And we could either calculate it by hours if we're not able to complete the balance of our 44 hours per week. We can do that by hour, $55.51 per hour or full week. So I don't know if corporate counsel wishes to comment on the legality of the frustration clause in the state of Illinois.
Thank you, Chief. So the contract doesn't have a force majeure clause in it, which is the kind of clause, superior force, that excuses performance or delays it. But Illinois has in its legal setting frustration as an equitable remedy. And they were raising that issue when they approached Chief Galt about doing something to change the contract. They came to us with this. This wasn't originating here. And I told the chief that they'd probably have a good argument that they shouldn't be paying for a service when the mall is closed by the order of the governor. So I think the chief reached out and made a good deal, frankly, and I support the deal that's reflected in the addendum.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Alderman Moyer, a second by Alderman Williams. Is there a discussion on this item?
Your Honor,
Yes?
this is Kevin. There's, I don't know if everybody else is getting the same thing, but I could hear about every third word Dirk said.
Yes.
Is that microphone hooked up?
It's on, yeah, I believe. I can turn it up.
We're gonna do a little check on
Will
that.
it help?
It's
The podium?
Can you do a little tester?
I will say 3 words, Ferda, Letterkenny, watch it, Hulu.
That reveals a lot. Can everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Could you hear all of what Dirk said?
Yes.
Talking about the frustration argument for this addendum, the frustration argument is it doesn't make sense to pay for a service when the mall is closed. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
How'd that?
So your recommendation is to go along with,
Yes, my recommendation is that I think the chief negotiated a good deal and that we keep the relationship. And so as soon as we're able to get back to having the mall, we are going to be able to go back in and work and get paid to do so. And that's not been the case around the country. It's not even the case across the river. So with this security company. So kudos to the chief for keeping the relationship alive and for the possibility of additional work and income for the city when we get back to what we used to know as normal.
Are there any
and what
comments or concerns?
will we do with those officers in the meantime, Chief?
Yes, Alderman, those officers are assigned to the Special Investigative Group, and so they have other duties that they are working on right now. They spend a minimum of 44 hours by contract at the mall or some other community policing events. And so they are working on other investigations and part of our Special Investigative Group, which we have plenty going on now, burglaries and retail thefts and other cases that they are assigned to.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Chief. The next item is Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Dirk Price.
Good evening again. So before you is a resolution necessary to catch up with what on the fly JD and Allison Fleming and staff have been doing to deal with the employment situation. So just by way of background for everybody at home and in their offices. So Families First went into effect on April 1st. And on April 1st, it gave, among other benefits to the country and to people, it did 2 things with respect to employees. It gave an additional 2 weeks of what were called emergency paid sick leave for COVID-related reasons. There were 6 COVID-related triggers, the first 3 having to do with the employee, him or herself, and the last 3 having to do with people that the employee would need to care for, whether a child, a relative, others. And then a second rule in FFCRA was the family medical leave expansion of benefits, that an additional 12 weeks of leave if you had to take care of a child who was home because the school was closed under an order of the governor or because of COVID-related reasons. So that put employers like the city of Moline in a bit of a scissors because we desperately need to have, particularly our emergency responders, on the front line. And in fact, FFCRA recognized this, and in the statute, it gave to the city of Moline and all municipalities the right to accept emergency responders, and that was a defined term, emergency responders from those two rules. And the emergency responders is defined in the guidance by the Department of Labor isn't just police and fire, which you think of, it's all the people that support police and fire, and it also said public works. And so the people who support public works. So in looking at and wrestling this with staff and recognizing the manpower shortages, personnel shortages we would be facing if people were gone for an additional 12 weeks on top of their other leave, and trying to navigate the statute, what we did is we accepted our emergency responders, defined to include public works and the support people for police, fire, and public works. We accepted them out of the two rules. But we also recognize that these are the very people on the front line putting themselves at risk for all of our benefit. And we did want to restore some rights to them for particularly the 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave. And so the way to walk the statute was this resolution, that the city granted them back those 2 weeks of leave benefits with an important exception. And that was that when it came to the first 2 paid weeks of emergency paid leave to take care of a child at home, that one we wanted to be on intermittent leave, and the statute didn't really make elbow room for that to happen. So we wanted that to be intermittent so that it wasn't 2 weeks or nothing, that it could be a day here or a day there where an officer or a public works employee needed to cover for a spouse for a particular day, that kind of thing. And also that in a situation where we were just short of people, that the 2 chiefs or the director of public works could say no on that 5th qualifying event, which is the one about 2 weeks of paid leave, emergency paid sick leave to take care of a child at home. So with that one exception, this is giving back those benefits to our emergency responders, but in a customized way that's not the sort of the imprecise way done in the statute, which was, passed in a hurry. So we think this is a better, more tailored fit for Moline, and we're asking you to confirm it because this is what we've been working with our employees on.
Alderman Waldron, motion to approve.
Alderman Potter, second.
Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Dirk. The next item is the revolving loan, COVID-19.
So good evening. This is a bit of a success story. I'm going to have Jeff Manis join us in a minute to talk about COVID-19 loans out of the revolving loan fund round 1 that he worked on with the ad hoc committee we formed in this room of Alderman Schoonmaker and Alderman Parker and Jeff. They got the applications, they got checks in the hands of people. I don't think we'll be able to get checks in the hands of people by this Friday because it's Good Friday and banks are closed and so forth. But nonetheless, this is round 2. The response to what the city of Moline did is overwhelming. I'll talk about the differences after Jeff does a little bit of a presentation about what happened with round 1 of the COVID loans from the revolving loan fund. Jeff, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Dirk. Thank you, Your Honor, Mayor, and the esteemed members of City Council. Can you all hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I would like to start out certainly by thanking the City Council for giving me the honor to work directly with Alderman Schoonmaker and Alderman Parker to award the first round with a potential second round of these microloans through the revolving loan fund to the small businesses. I created a bit of a document for your viewing pleasure here tonight to kind of recap the initial round of loans, to kind of put it there in black and white, also indicate the exact businesses that were able to take advantage of this. It was pretty incredible work. I'd like to commend Alderman Parker and Alderman Schoonmaker for being incredibly thorough and quick to deliver these. As it states, we were able to ultimately deliver 50,000 of city funds in a microloan in just under 51 hours after it was all said and done, after I was able to essentially get on the same page with Alderman Parker and Alderman Schoonmaker. It is undoubtedly an important initiative that I would like to see City Council approve an opportunity to have round two. As the document illustrates, there's already been 21 businesses that have ultimately signed up from a variety of industries within the city of Moline. And I want to thank you all again, and I am ready to reactivate this and enthusiastically work towards making sure we have a well-rounded representation of this alternate use of city funds. So thank you.
So for this next round, it would be $100,000. We would repurpose, I proposed here, $80,000 from the bridge loan program. There was $100,000 you had set aside in the budget for the I-74 bridge impact. We'd only had one applicant take advantage of that, Dead Poets. We have one application in the queue. When I prepared this, there's a second application in the queue now for the bridge loan program, but both of the applications are incomplete. They've not provided some things that are necessary for that. So what we're proposing is to take $80,000 of the remaining $90,000 from the bridge loan program, together with $20,000 otherwise undesignated dollars out of the revolving loan fund balance, and move that over and create $100,000. That would be 20 microloans of $5,000. The difference between round two and round one is in round one, those first loans weren't due to be repaid in full. No principal was due until the end, a balloon payment. Well, we need money to go back into the revolving loan fund a little sooner than that. And so what the mayor's idea was we break it up into 25%, a bit of principal each year. That also tags the base that Alderman Schoonmaker had in the first one, which was to remind them, you got a bill coming, so we made them pay interest every year on their anniversary. Well, this time they'd pay a quarter of the principal, and then the whole thing would be due on the 4th anniversary. So it's a little bit of a different, a little bit more money due a little sooner, but that's to replenish the revolving loan fund because certainly this, the impacts are going to be greater than just the next 12 months probably. And so that's where the money would come from. That would still leave approximately $103,000 of undesignated money in the revolving loan fund for its stated purposes. And if we decided that both of the bridge loans were good investments, I'd come back to you and ask for $10,000 to be put back into the bridge loan from the 103. At the moment, after talking to Tara, I'm not sure that we need to do that since both of those are incomplete, and maybe one of them is a better fit for this new program of $5,000 instead of $10,000 under the bridge. So with that, we're recommending round two as documented in the resolution.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Alderman Moyer
Second.
and a second by Alderman Williams. Dirk, I have a question. So we're allocating funding for 20 businesses and we have 21 applicants. Is the intention to distribute all 20 right now from this applicant pool, or is the intention to distribute like half and look for another applicant pool?
I've got a question to answer that. I need to ask Jeff. Jeff, is the 21 including the first 10, or is that 21 since the first 10?
There are 3 from within the first round that were tabled because they didn't fit the exact criteria that we were looking for in round one. So of the 21, 3 have already been considered, but were initially declined. All of the rest of them are new.
Okay, so what's your question, Mayor? There was 18
Well, all right,
ones.
maybe just clarification. Why did we say in the initial round there were 25 small businesses? Because there wouldn't have been 25.
I would say my very first step with this process was through the direction of Alderman Schoonmaker and Alderman Parker was to compile a list of 25 businesses
That was
that are maybe would be considered deeply rooted or cornerstone businesses for the city of Moline to then put in front of the ad hoc committee to consider and kind of narrow down and start to pinpoint which ones we want to target. I guess just coming straight out of the gate.
Okay. So it'd be allocation of enough for 20, and we have 21 applicants right now, and we would,
Right, that's assuming all 20 take the full 5,000. As you pointed out, maybe some don't.
or if the committee identifies all, so the council, in our decision this evening, we're not compelling our little committee to distribute all that money right now. They can continue to look for applicants. We've just got these businesses in the queue.
Correct.
Is that fair? Okay.
Yes, I would say illustrated that just to showcase the interest that there is within the business community here at the City of Moline.
Okay, but we can continue to solicit additional interest moving forward. So the committee isn't mandated to distribute all 20 from this 20.
Your Honor, it's Alderman Schoonmaker.
Uh-huh.
So Alderman Parker and I haven't looked at the applications yet for those 21, just the 3 from the prior pool. So we haven't even seen those yet. So, by the time we start looking at them, maybe tomorrow, there may be more, and I would anticipate that a handful more would come in, I would think.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the committee isn't compelled to distribute all of this money right now if the candidates aren't exactly what we think is meeting the profile of this loaning program.
Understood.
Is there any other comment or question? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you to you, Dirk, and thank you to the committee for your work on this, and thank you to Jeff Manis as well. The next.
Thank you.
Also,
It's been an honor.
Dirk, continuity, wow, that's a hard word. Continuity of operations plan.
This was presented to you at the last meeting by Allison and JD. This was essentially to deal with if somebody working within leadership or in the management structure or other employees came down with COVID and was sent home. The plan has been refined. We took out the first sentence that Alderman Wendt had focused on about the word essential. We rewrote that sentence to more accurately describe what we were trying to do. We've given a little bit of flexibility in the resolution adopting this, in part because we've already recognized there may be tweaks here and there. So, and in recognition of the unique structure that is Moline, the city administrator would check in with HR manager Fleming and the mayor before making any other exceptions or deviating it from it in any way. But because this thing is so fluid, because the management challenges are so unpredictable in some ways, we felt we needed to build in a little bit of flexibility, and so we have. So those are the changes from the first draft you saw, which we gave you half an hour before the meeting. So now that you've had a chance to review it, we've tried to incorporate the comments we got, and we're moving a formal adoption of the continuity of operations plan, which has been a useful tool, I would say, JD, so far. So we're moving, recommending formal adoption of this through the resolution.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Alderman Moyer has made a motion. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Williams. Is there any discussion on this? Alderman Witt?
Your Honor,
Yes. Yes?
I had a quick question about under number 6, and I apologize for not getting this question out ahead of time. The finance and utility billing open to the public. Is there the possibility, I know that we've got a Dropbox, and I know you can sign up online and do quite a few things. Is there anything with collections at that location that requires people to have to come into that front vestibule area that we couldn't do through the Dropbox or online?
I will give you this suggestion. JD has talked to me about it a little bit. Across the state, we're running into the same issue, and that's one of demographics. There are people who are not comfortable when it comes to the delivery of their utility bill, doing it online or doing it other than in person. They want to deliver it so they can say they delivered it. I would say just colloquially that my mother would be one of the people who falls into that category. She will absolutely do nothing ever online. She doesn't believe in drop boxes because someone will steal it. I don't know where that comes from, but you have those people in your community. So is there anything that requires people to go in and give this? No. We're going to provide as many alternatives to socially distance ourselves as possible. The question is whether you want to still make that occasional service available to the people who really feel they need it. I don't know, JD, did you have
So-
something to add?
Yeah.
So no, I would say that Carol's joined us remotely here tonight, and she, I can't quote the statistics, but it was a high percentage of people are still coming in person with cash to make payments on their utility bills. And just like Dirk said, I think they're hesitant if they don't have, we can't force them obviously to pay over if they want us to make change or whatever. We could, I suppose, implement some things and maybe require exact change if they're going to use a Dropbox or anything, but we haven't moved forward yet with anything like that. I do have a team of people that are looking at like a cash receiving station similar to what you see at Walmart or places like that, you know, where people use to self-pay. But they haven't, I just put a team of 3 people on that last week and they haven't come back with any recommendations yet.
Is there any way that we communicate to the public or the people that would prefer to pay in person that we will extend their payment due date without penalty until after this is passed?
I mean, I could work through that, sure. We
Well,
could.
Carol, what is the percentage? JD indicated it was a high percentage. What is the percentage of people that pay at the window?
Wish I had that percentage ahead of me. It is actually slowed down a little bit, but when we send out billings, we always get a group of people that like to come in and pay cash. Cash is the majority of through the window. We do get checks, but now we've got notices on our doors, and a lot of those people are using the lockbox or they are using online payments. It's primarily those over-the-counter cash payments that our staff has been very alarmed about.
So I'm just wondering what percentage of our revenue base is cash? I mean, what is the percentage that gets paid in cash of our utility bills?
If my memory serves me right, I think it's about a 10%, between 10 and 12%. The vast majority of people pay by check or by credit card or direct withdrawal.
So Alderman Nguyen, I think your point is well taken. It feels like we should probably make a alternative plan than accepting cash, but.
So we could put up the cash payments are suspended until further order of the mayor and then, or further order of the council, and then people will have to, if they'll call, they'll inquire of finance, how do I get my water pay? And we'll just let them know, since you're not paying by check or credit card, if you refuse to do that, you know, we'll work with you on when you get your bill paid.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Alderman White, the other option along with that is they can get money orders. I mean, I have tenants that don't have bank accounts, and rather than taking cash, they do money orders when they have to drop it into a Dropbox. It's traceable. They have a receipt stub if it gets lost, and all of those things. So I think maybe if I like the idea of suspending the cash payments. If we can reduce the contact points with the public and those sorts of things, that reduces the issues that may resolve, and I believe ultimately makes our employees safer with that. And so I think if we could do that and maybe have directions on, you know, here you can go get a money order if you don't feel comfortable with putting cash in there. We can say that it's monitored and picked up however many times a day. I mean, the staff is there. I know that they are going out and checking it multiple times a day. They can, we can maybe have specific times that, kind of like the mailbox where they go out and empty it. That way, just those times, staff can have PPE and whatever to go in and get those things and make appropriate arrangements versus a stream of people coming in and dealing with them in that foyer. And if it takes them an extra day or two to pay their bill as the public, we're not charging late fees. We're not turning people's stuff off. So if they have to come back a different day, it's not that big of a deal.
So Judy, would you look at that for us? I think that the pay station is the ultimate solution because there's all sorts of issues handling cash anyway. But as the interim, I don't want to speak for the whole council, but I'd be very comfortable in the deferred payment because, the interest that you're exposing yourself to for a month delay in payment is not insurmountable.
Your Honor.
Is that Alderman Schoonmaker?
Yes. I was going to bring this up later, but it now dovetails into this conversation. I've had a landlords group contact me, and they understand, but they're also concerned because when you don't shut water off or you waive late charges and you allow a landlord to pay late or a tenant to pay late, now that water bill carries with the property. And not that there's a whole lot of problem tenants, but when you do have a problem tenant and the water bill doesn't get paid and now the state has mandated you can't remove them from the property and the water bill continues to run up, there needs to be at least some consideration as we do this for the effect on the landlord as well. So, as you develop your policy, JD, would you please consider that as well?
Certainly.
Well, maybe that's part of the solution is they can turn the money into their landlord who can bring us a check because they're not afraid to bring a check.
Would the landlord be in support of that? Are you concerned, Alderman Schoonmaker, that our deferral of cash payments will hurt the landlords in some way, or are you just saying in general they because
in general it started with the fact that we won't turn water off. So if you have a landlord who has a tenant who already would be in the process of eviction, they now can not be evicted because the state has mandated that, and now the city has said they don't have to pay their water bill either. This is a pretty micro area of what's going to happen. I think we're doing the right thing by doing what we're doing. I just think we need to have some consideration for the landlord and those landlord groups and situations that may arise as a unforeseen consequence.
So in the signage, I think some of the signage would help, JD, as you work through it. Signage that says we've suspended the receipt of cash payments. Here are alternatives to go get a money order. Pay your landlord who can pay it. And maybe other ideas that staff will come up with about alternatives, and we put that on the same sign on the front door that says we're suspending the receipt of cash payments.
So we can do that and then put on there all the other options that they have, because some
Right.
folks, I know we communicate to them, but some folks just probably haven't ever, researched that availability and the convenience of it. But I want to make sure I've got my understanding clear. This is to put that into effect, to close that access off to the public then, while we have
is
this
that the
in place?
consensus of the council? I mean, we have another vote here just in general on the continuity of
Resolution.
operations. Isn't that what we're voting on?
Yeah, that's what you're voting on, but
Yeah.
we're trying to.
So we're doing a little middle. We're looking for consensus. Is the council comfortable with deferring those cash payments if they won't use another method until the COVID-19 stay in place order is lifted?
Your Honor?
Yes, Alderman Nguyen.
So I guess maybe what I'd like to do is amend this by changing the finance utility building from open to the public to closed with this closed to the public. Make that amendment.
So can you add to that with the recognition that we'll be deferring cash payments?
Exactly, and then with the understanding that that's what we're expecting staff to implement that.
So we have a motion to amend. I think I heard a second, but I didn't catch who it was. I did not hear a second. Does
I'll
anyone
second.
want to second that? Alderman Moyer seconding it? Is there any discussion on that amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The amendment carries. We're now considering an amended motion on the floor to accept the continuity plan with the amendment. Is there any further discussion?
I wanted one more clarification.
Certainly.
I check with Holly periodically at the 3635 4th Avenue at the Public Works Building, and she said last week she had about 12 folks the one day I checked in with her, and they do bring some cash in to buying permits. So do you want us to suspend taking cash there too for the building permits, or would that still be all right to take it there?
So council, did you hear that from JD? He wants to know if we should suspend taking cash payments at Public Works. There were about a dozen last week.
A dozen customers came in. I don't know how many of them actually
Oh,
paid with cash, but that's
okay.
what I'm saying is if they wanted to offer cash, if we would maybe turn it away.
Alderman,
Your Honor.
Alderman,
Your Honor.
I can see your hand. I don't know if anybody else has their hand up. Can you scroll it up?
Yes, JD, with that, I think the cash payments, I think, is just part of that. With the finance, I think by doing that, we're able to eliminate that touch point completely, where the public doesn't then need to come into that area. With what you're talking about at Public Works, my assumption is you guys don't have the ability to do everything else just remotely right now, or do we?
I don't think we're doing a lot of it that way. I think Holly's been pretty innovative on what she's doing. I mean, some folks call ahead and she'll just like walk their permit outside so they don't have to hit any of our touch points. You know, she just hands it to them and they go a little curb service, whatever. She's been innovative to do some alternatives, but I think you're right. I don't think we have the ability to close it off completely the way we're doing things now.
Maybe that's something we should look at doing, but for right now, I mean, if that touch point is happening, the difference of her being handed a check versus her being handed a cash, I don't think is that big of a difference. But I would like us to see if there's ways to limit those contact points with staff to keep them safer.
Okay, we've been on it, but I'll put a renewed vigor on trying to identify the outliers.
No, I think you did a nice job of evolving your plans to address the.
Your Honor.
And I think the expectation will be with this continuity plan, even if we approve it, that evolution will continue. I can see someone's hand raised.
Your Honor.
Aldrin?
Wouldn't it be the same for the parks receptionist?
It would be, Alderman, and the day that I checked, there were three compared to Holly's 12 there. So yeah, there's still some entries coming in there looking for parks.
Alderman Berg, is that you? Is that Alderman Berg?
Yes.
You need to unmute yourself.
It's not muted.
We can't hear
We can't hear you, Alderman Berg.
Are we going to have some sort of signage that will say no cash accepted and do it in both languages? I'm going to venture to guess that we have a lot of the Hispanics that do cash. So will we be able to have it printed in different languages, JD?
Yeah, I'll make sure that it's, I'll make sure we have it defined and even contact information on there if they want to communicate with us by phone.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Alderman Nguyen.
Yeah, one other thing, JD, and I think the mayor mentioned this, but I think it'd be really good. There had been some discussions before about payment machines being available, or us looking into those as an automated process, even maybe one at City Hall, one at the Finance Department. Just long term, I think that is a way to go, that they accept cash, they accept checks, however we want to do it. But I think that is the future. And if we can move that forward now with efficiencies, I think that's something we really should implement as soon as we can.
JD mentioned he's got a committee on it already.
Yeah.
Committee of three.
A committee of three, and I'll get an update from them tomorrow and get you an answer back this week on what the progress is on that.
Perfect.
Anything else, guys? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. The next item is the Floreciente Streetscape Phase 2, KJ Whitley and Jeff Anderson.
And Your Honor, I'm gonna speak to this, if you don't
Okay.
mind. Would you like me to do it from here or up there?
I think from here, I think your microphone works better than that one.
Okay. Council, I'd like to speak to this tonight, a little bit about this, and just, I'm gonna offer up my commentary here, and then I'll answer any questions. But this, the streetscaping project on the Floreciente District is a CDBG project. It's funded 100% by CDBG, but streetscaping improvements do fall into a category, and that for CDBG is what they call Consolidated Plans Neighborhood Infrastructure Program projects. And this project allows for activities such as streetscaping, both hard and softscape, but also street improvements like storm drains, sidewalks, street signage, and street lighting work. And what I wanted you to just hear from me tonight, I guess, is that when Carol gives her presentation later on, you're going to see that we're going to maybe pause or try and postpone some capital improvement projects that do have infrastructure improvements as part of them. And because of the fact that we may be in a position to where an aesthetic project like this and tying up these CDBG funds could keep us from doing some infrastructure improvement projects, maybe some lead service lines or something like that we would have used CIP funds for. I'm gonna just ask what your interest is tonight, and maybe holding off on not moving forward with this streetscaping project, and asking us what it would look like to redirect those funds in the census tract, just everything in compliance, but in one of these other categories to possibly do an infrastructure improvement project, since we may be scaling back on some of those that would normally be funded with CIP. And I'll answer any questions I guess you got on why I think this is.
When do those funds have to be spent or we lose them?
Okay, those kind of questions I'm going to ask Jeff or KJ to jump in on. But Jeff, did you hear the question from the mayor on timing?
I did. Can you hear me?
Yeah?
Yes.
Yes. So at the end of October, HUD conducts a timeliness test, and we cannot exceed 1.5 times our annual allocation at that point in time. So ideally, the funds would be spent prior to October 31st in order to meet that timeliness test. That's compounded by the fact that we'll probably get our 2020 allocation sometime around mid to end of summer, so we'll have that additional funding coming in with little time to spend it. So the sooner we can spend these funds, the better. We don't automatically lose them, but if we're not timely for, I believe it's 2 years in a row, then HUD can consider cutting back our allocation by the amount that we exceed the timeliness test of 1.5 times our annual allocation. And if I've forgotten anything, I would ask KJ to step in.
How did we do on the last year?
We were razor thin, and by moving ahead with phase 1 of the streetscape, that we were able to spend down funds and come in under that 1.5. But again, we received the 2019 allocation end of summer, early fall, and had that new money coming in on top of the money we were attempting to spend, but we were timely.
So the 450,000, I think it's 450 that we were awarded in lieu of the downstate program, when do we get that money?
We have not been told yet. KJ has been in contact with HUD, our regional office, within the last day or two. They have told us that at the regional level that they are waiting for guidance from the national level. Our understanding is once the regional office provides us guidance, HUD then has 30 days to allocate the funding to the entitlement communities such as Moline, but we don't understand yet exactly what the process is in terms of public hearing, public participation,
and the method by which we request and HUD approves that money to be available to us. Obviously, they're working for a very tight turnaround to meet the COVID-19 need. But I can't tell you right now if it's a matter of weeks or longer.
Will they be providing programming guidelines for it, like restrictions on how we can spend it?
That is our understanding. You may have seen a letter that was sent to your attention. Staff was copied on that. I think we just saw that today, and it provided some general parameters that there will be additional flexibility in this new round of funding, but they are not saying specifically how wide and flexible that is yet. But there will be additional flexibility over the normal CDBG funding.
Okay, so so the consideration for the council this evening is, do we want to proceed with the Floreciente streetscaping as planned, or do we want to hold back and look at maybe a different, more COVID-19 appropriate allocation of that funding? So what's the council think?
Your Honor. Your Honor.
Hold on just a second. Alderman Moyer?
I was just curious, didn't we appeal to the public for funds? And have we received any funds?
Jeff and Kay, you guys can speak to, I think we've had have we had $1,000 come in on private contributions towards this?
Yes, that's still where we're at. We have disseminated information, put it on the website, but in terms of receiving additional contributions, that's where we're at.
So just so you guys know, I got a call today from a family that's been trying to sponsor a bench, and they've struggled to connect up with that process. So we might have a little bit of a glitch in and I'm assuming that part will still go forward, but I'll give you the contact information for them.
Thank you.
Sure. So what's the?
Your Honor.
Yes, Alderman Schumacher. Was that your voice?
So,
No.
Alderman Potter.
Alderman Potter.
I'm wondering, can you give some clarity, JD, as to where staff or somebody else thinks we might reprogram these funds?
Well, I would recommend that we do it in one of those categories because as HUD defines a minimal effort is a little bit different probably in the way we would define it. It would take some staff time. I'd ask Kay to make it a priority. We probably work with our utilities engineer team down there in Public Works and put a list together. I know we have lead service lines. We actually, moved forward before this streetscaping project was to commence, and we replaced, I think, 7 or 8 lead services there on 6 that we wanted to make sure were completed before we obviously put new pavement up over the top of that. And so I'd probably ask them to work with Laura to see, moving out from that as our center point to see where we could probably do more lead service lines or things like that that would be eligible under this funding.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I understand, and if we've got concrete going over on the top of it, and I think that those are important things because you don't want to spend more money going back over it. But I think with what we're dealing with now with the COVID, the community development block grant funds, they can do some stuff that affect people now and help them now with things that they're struggling through if they're unemployed and lost their jobs and do those sorts of things. So I'd like to focus those funds. I'm a huge proponent of this Floreciente thing, and hopefully we can get back to it afterwards, but I'd like to see these funds used in a way that can assist these people in a more immediate fashion that is something that affects their everyday lives sooner than later, if at all possible.
Okay.
What's the requirements that has to be spent in one of our low to mod income neighborhoods?
Low to moderate income census tract, or a low to moderate income individual or family So anything that we do that reverses it now from Floricente is going to require a substantial amendment. So these funds probably will not be ready for another 90 to 100 days by the time we go through the process.
But we could use it for things like rent and paying water bills, that kind of thing, or not?
Well, we have that program in front of you guys tonight with the rent and utility assistance program, as well as the home buyers program. So we have those programs in place right now for your consideration. We can always add more funding to those programs if you like. But again, that's going to require a substantial amendment. So we have to go back out for CAC-up and public comment, and then send our plan up to HUD, who has 45 days to approve it or send it back to us so we can amend it.
Will that be able to be done in the timeline for us to spend it?
Well, you're really going to be pushing it depending on what project you want to go forward with. Because say we don't get our approval until August from HUD, this money has to be spent by October 31st. So if you don't have a large project you're looking at versus trying to do 30 smaller projects and trying to find contractors to do them, then it's very time sensitive.
Well, my argument against that, KJ, is that we get a pass this year because we have to do 2 years in a row before we're penalized. So if we don't spend it by October 31st this year, we have another year. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand what Jeff said?
Well, you would still be untimely if you didn't spend all the money that you needed to spend by October. But normally they're not looking to cut your allocation until your second year. You are correct on that, Mayor.
Okay. I think this is a time that we need to reflect on how best to invest in our lower income neighborhoods to make sure they get through this process. Personally.
Your Honor?
Yes?
Could I add a point of clarification?
I don't know, are we confused?
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And while the money that was earmarked for Floriciente that is in the neighborhood infrastructure program in the consolidated plan, as JD mentioned, within the agenda explanation, the second and third sentence of the explanation identifies pretty much the activities that money could be steered towards without having to most likely do the substantial amendment process KJ talked to. But getting into utility pipes, that was not included within the consolidated plan explanation, but you can do the streetscaping, storm drain, sidewalks, street signage, and street lighting work. And street repair work. So there is a fair amount of infrastructure work that can be done, but I hesitate to say we could do water service lines.
Okay, so it'd have to be in that category, or we'd need to go back with an amendment, is that right?
Yes, that's my understanding at this point.
So I don't think we have any motion on the floor right now, is that correct? What is the council? Council, does anybody want to give some direction to staff on how to handle this situation? You want to throw a motion out there, Alderman Nguyen?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we postpone the phase 2 and transfer those funds to a program that is more immediately impactful, and have staff by next meeting come to us with proposals, whether that's under, well, I guess maybe we can, and I apologize, this is a very long motion, but I got a quick question in it. KJ, did you say that we're going to be able to use this in the programs that you're going to be presenting later today?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can move the money there, but again, all that involves a substantial amendment. Anytime you take more than 50% or you cancel an activity, you have to take it back for a substantial amendment. So if we take all the money that we have in Streetscape right now or in our NIP, Neighborhood Infrastructure Program, take more than 50% of that and put it anywhere else, it's going to require a substantial amendment, and you're looking at anywhere from about 90 to 100 days.
So if we do 49% of it, we could just move it over tomorrow?
I believe that's correct. Let me double check with Jeff, because that's really a Tara question. So, Jeff, can you speak to that?
Yes, if the pleases the council. I believe there's the 50% takeaway that triggers the substantial amendment, as well as creating a new activity or increasing an existing activity by more than 50%. But I don't have the procedures guidebook right in front of me, and I think it'd probably be wise for us to read it. But I believe those are the thresholds for a substantial amendment.
Okay, then let me change my my motion then. I'd like to take 49% of the money from this to be immediately put into more impactful programs as suggested by staff, and then staff also come back to us with recommendations for what to do with the other 51% by next meeting.
Second.
I missed who the second was from.
Parker.
Alderman Parker, thank you. So we have a motion by Alderman Wint, a second by Alderman Parker. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Alderman Parker, hand raised?
Yeah, Alderman Potter here. I wondered if there was the council willing to consider just leaving that 51% there and doing that much of the project. Because I understand what we're trying to do, and I'm very supportive. The problem becomes the bureaucracy of HUD and the going back through CACUP and everything. Just a suggestion.
So,
and that may be what staff's recommendation is.
Can I ask a question though? We can still reallocate it to the lead service lines, right? Because it's still within that category. Is that correct?
According to Jeff, he said the lead service lines are not. They would be in that, they'd make that substantial amendment.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is still 49%, roll it over immediately, and 51% looking for, well, I guess you're looking for a recommendation on both, right, Alderman Wint?
Yes.
But one would be the obvious easy one, and the other one would be perhaps entertaining a substantial, I'm sorry, what do you call it?
Substantial amendment.
Thank you, substantial.
Or it might be keeping it exactly where it's at.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay vote. Could you state your name?
Alderman Waldron.
Was that the only nay vote? One nay vote from Alderman Waldron. The motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item is the other that I mentioned, and this has to do with Live Stories. So I think you're all familiar with Live Stories. They do our financial interactive reports, and they also do our COVID-19 page that I don't know if everybody's seen it, but it has all of our restaurants and what services they're providing, as well as links to World Health Organization's CDC, the State of Illinois Health Department, State of Illinois Unemployment sign up, that kind of stuff. And then our locals, so our employees have information about what their COVID-19 plans are, as well as the service adjustments that we made for the community. So that's the website. In developing that website, though, and working with Live Stories, there is a tool that has been developed, and it's really specific to our concerns of how to support our small businesses right now. So I want to share, oops, I gotta go back here. I'm gonna have to share my screen, you guys. So I think you'll be able to see it. Can you all see it? Can you see the forward?
I kicked you to the
I can't.
You'll have to accept.
SECC. There we go.
That's not it.
Oh, that's a good looking picture. There we go. Another one.
What do I need to click on?
Oh, there's Scooney.
Share it now.
Okay, now I'm sharing. Now I'm sharing the screen. It's not letting me. There we go. Can you all see? Can you see my screen now? Flipping over.
Yes.
Can you see the word forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay. Okay, so these are concept slides, but this is all will be based on the internet. And so there'll be logins for every one of our businesses as well as report outs for us. The problem that we're trying to resolve is the just the avalanche of information that's going out to our small businesses. I own a small business, and so I know what everybody else is experiencing, and I have a pretty large small business, so I have a lot of resources available to me, like accounting firms and that kind of thing. But our little small businesses, like restaurants and individual proprietors, are struggling trying to navigate their way to what they're qualified for and what they're not qualified for. I personally received a lot of calls, and by a lot I mean half dozen calls, from businesses wanting to know more about the downstate grant program. And unfortunately, none of our businesses are eligible for the downstate grant program because that is for entities that are not home rule. So there's just a lot of miscommunication. And so the people that are pushing out the information are kind of pushing out it all and then, wishing well the people that are trying to find it. So what this tool would be, it would be pre-populated with the information we know about a business. And so this is just an example of Senior Julio's. And so their information would be pre-populated. It would come in and it would give them a couple of support things. So these are the to-dos for Senior Julio's. It's specific to the Hospitality Emergency Grant Program. And they would be eligible for $10,000 because they're a restaurant. And so then it checks through all of their eligibility. So the pre-populated information says that they're eligible. And so they could apply for that grant. And then the other one, let's see, I don't know if it goes down in here. So that was the eligibility. Oops, sorry, I'm going back up here. So that's the eligibility information. You can kind of see it mid-screen. It says eligibility, uses, comments. And then you can drill down this. These are some other resources that we're not sure if they're eligible for or not because they haven't fully populated their information. And then you can go across the screen. So this defines the Hospitality Emergency Grant Program, $10,000. They can use it for all of those things. They can't use it for employee retention. So, and I don't know if that's accurate. This is just kind of a simulation. So it describes the uses of that particular resource. And then the comments are shared comments for other entities as well as the city that are involved in our group. And so this would be other Moline businesses asking questions and getting answers, and that would be shared throughout the business community. And then there would be an opportunity for private question and answers. So let's say one of the businesses calls into the city and you have a conversation with them, you could document some information that you provided to them on the phone here, or they could submit a question directly to our Economic Development Department, and our Economic Development Department could answer through this tool. This is their general information. So when we have an entity, we can pre-populate it for them. So we have information about each one of our businesses through licensing programs. So everybody that has a liquor license, we have a lot of information about them. Everybody that has a hazmat, everybody that has, this and that. We also got a data dump from the chamber that is from Hoover's that gives basic business information on all sorts of entities like churches and contractors. So we would do pre-population, and then they would have the opportunity to add stuff, and we would have an opportunity to add stuff from our side of it too. And then this is some reporting that would come with the tools, so we could kind of track the different resources that are available. And those resources would be populated by us or by any of our partners. Like say if we had a partner set as Renew could populate different grants, but one of the resources would be our $5,000 loan. So that would be in here. And then we would identify all of our businesses as being eligible. And we'd be able to track who looked at that loan and who actually submitted an application. There will also be an opportunity for these businesses to pre-populate their applications. So for an example like that, the city application, they could fully populate from just the information that they have on there. For other things like the PPP loan application, it would link them over to their banking partner to launch, and it would pre-populate there. And I think that's all of my slides. So anyway, so Adnan is our contact at Life Stories, and I've been working with him. I have talked to our neighbors. So Rock Island, City of Rock Island is interested in participating with this tool, and Dari has graciously agreed to pay for their charge for that for 3 years. And the city of East Moline is also interested, and my understanding is, I think that Redeem is paying for it, but I'm not sure about that. Silvis is looking at participating, and then I wanted to offer it up for our council to decide if this is something that you think is worthy of an investment. The main purpose is that we have the information and we can guide our businesses, but it takes hours to walk through it with individual businesses because they're customized, and so we have to do the research to figure out if they're eligible or not, and we just don't have the staffing available. Right now, what the community has been doing is sending calls over to the chamber, but the chamber has limited resources as well. So this kind of cuts through the chafe and gets people to, you know, exactly what's going to be appropriate for them to try to focus their efforts and get them the resources they need. So that's the tool. If you're interested in the cost is a $2,500 setup fee, and then for communities our size, I can't remember the number now because I can only remember the discounted numbers, but the number was something like 20,000, and they were going to give us a 20% discount. They are coming in lower than that because we are working with them for development, and so those 4 organizations, those 4 cities, will get in at a lower rate, and so our rate would actually be $500 a month without the setup fee, and they will discount it 10% if we enter into a 3-year contract. So that would put the 3-year contract at I can't remember what it is, $16,200 for, and so a third of that would be paid out or charged every year. And we would have the opportunity to cancel the contract with 60 days notice at any time. So I'd like to open it up for discussion. Does council have any questions for me? Was that a cricket?
I think we like it.
It seems like a great program. I know that there's a lot of small businesses that are just drowning in all the different information and don't know exactly where to look or what they're eligible for, and they're almost paralyzed by not knowing where to start first. And I think something like this would be very helpful to them.
Are there any comments other than?
Are you looking for a motion, Mayor?
Well, I would entertain a motion if someone's comfortable with making one. Oh, in addition to that, I'd like to offer up that I have a meeting with Renew Moline tomorrow, and they are considering sponsoring us. So if you're going to make a motion, I would suggest you make it like we did with the ULI, where the council would make the commitment to cover the costs in case we couldn't find sponsorship from one of our partners, like specifically Renew.
So moved.
Second.
So we have Alderman Parker and a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any further discussion on this? In talking to Adnan, he thinks that he can have the original version up and running by this time next week, and there is some pressure to get this thing going. And so there'll be, I feel like we have a potential for the library to help support us in just addressing, you know, touch points. If someone asks a question, getting to the right person, I'd be looking for support from the Economic Development Department, and I think that Renew would also be an avenue of support. The chamber, we've had very preliminary conversations. They are kind of working on their own thing, not something like this, but their website, making their website very sophisticated that it's easy for individual businesses to navigate. So I'm not sure what their involvement would be on a tool like this, but I have had conversations with them. Are there any other comments or questions or concerns? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
I didn't see who the nay vote's from.
Alderman Waldron.
Okay, motion, was there just one nay vote? One nay vote from Alderman Waldron, motion carries. So this will be on the council agenda for consideration next week. And that's all we have for our items. I'd like to now turn it over for Carol Barnes to lead us in the informational this evening. Projected 2020 budget impact.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. And I need Don to put the presentation up. And we can go to the very next screen. As we evaluate the financial impact of COVID-19 on our community, uncertainty is inevitable. We are in uncharted waters with challenging times ahead. And the longer the governor's stay-at-home executive orders continue, we will see increased positive health impacts and safety and welfare on our Moline residents, but we will be in a declining economic impact. Over the last 2 weeks, city staff at all levels has been preparing a revised city budget reflecting the potential impact of COVID-19. And when I say city staff at all levels, I truly mean everybody from everywhere, top to bottom, throughout this whole organization, gave an all-out effort to help pull this together. The revised budget is intended to be a fluid working document that we can continue to monitor and to update. And it will also be used as a decision-making tool over the coming weeks and months. The magnitude of the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively and dramatically harmed our global economy with immediate and long-term negative impacts upon the regional economy and the anticipated revenues for the city of Moline. 2 weeks ago when we talked, the governor's initial stay-at-home executive order was through April 7th. And our short-term projections that we showed you at that time were showing lost revenues of about $2.5 million. Since then, the stay-at-home order has been extended through April 30th, and the revised budget now reflects that revenue reductions are approaching $5.8 million. If the stay-at-home order continues past April 30th, we could be looking at revenue losses upward of $9 to $10 million if the slowdown in the economy continues through the end of the year. So as we began compiling the revised budget, we started with projecting revenues. And the first thing we looked at were the measurable lost revenues. We looked at lost library fees and fines from temporary shutting the facility down at the library. We looked at lost fees and charges for services from suspending recreation programs and the potential of the pool closure. We also looked at suspending penalties and interest on the utility bills and the suspension of issuing parking tickets. All these types of lost revenues are very short-term and they are easy to measure. So we were able to wrap our head around those. The next thing that we looked at were the volatile lost revenues due to the COVID-19. And these are all dependent upon that stay-at-home order, whether it continues or if it ends April 30th. And in that bucket, we're looking at all the state and home rule sales tax, our income tax, replacement tax, utility taxes, hotel motel tax, motor fuel, all of our very large and very significant revenue streams. And most of these are all intergovernmental revenues from the state, and the majority are the ones that fund our general fund. The exact impact of these revenue losses is very difficult to project. And to compound the difficulty is the state has extended the filing requirement on most of them to benefit and to help our businesses, our local businesses. Another complication on the revenue side is the state comptroller recently announced that she was delaying payments to local governments. We don't really know what delay payments mean, but it's worrisome at best. All of these variables lend to the importance of having healthy fund balances on hand to help fill the gaps from lost revenues. As we determined in our revised budget, the projected short-term impact from the COVID-19, we determined that shortfalls could reach the $5.8 million level. Our assumptions to come to that calculation included the following: that the stay-at-home order only continues through 4/30. So the $5.8 million is going to be a loss through the April 30th. All city operations and services would continue with the exception of the library, which is already closed through May 1st, and our Parks and Recreation program, which is anticipating closing the pool for the calendar year of 2020, as well as halting and suspending recreation programs through July 1st. Revenues overall are showing a decline of 40 to 60% through June 30th, with a slow progressive ramp up through September 30th. Our immediate response to cover these shortfalls across all of our funds include the following. And I don't think I'm going to read through all of them, but you can see them on the board, but I'm going to highlight the major ones. The first and one of the biggest ones is the moratorium on hiring personnel, and this would include all seasonal, part-time, and full-time positions. We currently have 21 open positions, and aside from some essential public safety positions, all of these would be put on hold. We've also halted all non-essential operating expenses at your direction 2 weeks ago. We deferred vehicle purchases, pushed them out to 2021, and over the next 5 years, everything is being pushed back 1 year. That saves us about $840,000. We have paused VIP infrastructure projects that have not been bid and or awarded, and we're going to be talking about those over the next few weeks when we get together on 2-on-2. We've also deferred capital equipment and construction projects across all enterprise funds. We deferred the pickleball courts and the Karstens Park playground improvements. We reduced the salt and de-icing expenditures to the tune of about $116,000 due to the mild winter we had this last year. We deferred a portion of our form-based code to future years. And again, you've heard we've closed the library till May 1st, anticipating closing the pool for the 2020 season and suspended rec programs through July 1st. These are only a handful of the changes. If we add them all up, we literally had hundreds of cuts across all of our budgets. And as a result of these cuts, every fund was made whole except for the general fund. And the general fund is still projecting a $2.9 million shortfall. And it's largely because the majority of those huge revenues that are declining are part of the general fund. Our next step was to develop considerations to cover that $2.9 million shortfall in the general fund. And one option that we looked at was to draw down our general fund balance, potentially up to the tune of $2.2 million. Currently, we have almost a 25% fund balance to expenditures, which equates to about 89 days. And when we went through our Moody's review here just a couple of weeks ago, that was one of the things, we were proud of and that Moody's likes to see is healthy fund balances. Drawing down the fund balance by $2.2 million would take us down to 20% and a 72-day reserve. Fund balances in the neighborhood of 20 to 25% still are considered to be very, very healthy. The fund balances in total are typically set aside for the rainy day. And I really want to emphasize that Council's foresight to maintain strong fund balances now offer cash flow flexibility to carry the city through unforeseen emergency events like the one we are now faced with. Several of our surrounding communities do not have this flexibility. So we are very, very fortunate in that is an option. There's the possibility too that we are also pursuing an option to reallocate our 2020 property tax levies. We could consider drawing down our internal service funds up to about $500,000. That's across a couple of the internal service funds. We could also use our current line of credit, which currently is a $2.9 million capacity. But I want to note and state that everything is currently in play across all funds to help fill this funding gap in the general fund. And of course, we'll always be looking at any council options that you guys come up with. The next thing we looked at was the scenario that we felt we needed to consider was how we would begin to balance the budget if the stay-at-home order extended past April 30th. And as you know, some states have already said that they're going to extend through May. At that point, we're looking at longer-term shortfalls approaching that $9 to $10 million by the end of the year. In this event, all considerations to fill our short-term gap that we just went through April 30th, those would all stay in place. We do the hiring freeze, all the non-essential spending, all those types of things would stay in place. But in addition to that, we would have to take a deeper dive and potentially begin to evaluate current service levels for possible reductions. We could also look at additional drawdowns on the general fund. If we dipped another 5%, that would give us $2.2 million, but that's taking us down to the 15% range. And when we get together on our two-on-twos, I'm going to show you a 3-year cash flow on the general fund where you can kind of show how revenues go up and down, how they flow throughout the year. 15% is about the absolute bottom line that I would want to take it down to. We also have the possibility of issuing revenue anticipation notes as we've done in the past. We could draw down on the enterprise fund balances, which fortunately, those fund balances, each and every one of them have remained healthy because our charges for services, although they may be delayed, we will be receiving those funds. We could also look at additional drawdowns for our internal service funds. We could also consider an increase in our short-term line of credit. I've already talked to our bank, and they have given us a nod to increase up to $6 million if needed with council approval. We could also consider issuing tax anticipation warrants against our upcoming 2021 levy. And of course, again, we would consider all council options. Another budget consideration is the impact of the CARES Act. And representatives from Ansel Blink and Springfield are helping us monitor this. Through the CARES Act, $150 billion has been available in direct aid to states. However, no specifics are currently available on how that money will flow to local governments. And we hope that these rules on this topic will be available within the next 2 weeks. Again, as part of this CARES Act, $45 billion is available through FEMA, and Moline is eligible for 75% reimbursement for qualifying expenditures. We've already set up a team, we've set up project codes, we've educated our employees to be capturing every eligible expenditure. Whatever we capture, we have to have a match. Right now, we anticipate spending upward of $400,000, and it would look like about $100,000 would be required for our city match. Also in that CARES Act program, there is $100 million in grants that is available for our first responders. And Moline may be eligible for upwards of $1 million in grants, but you have to have qualifying expenditures to get that. But a grant potentially for first responders is available. Moving forward then, moving forward, we will weather this storm. The city has ample resources available for short-term cash flow flexibility, and we now have the financial model set up to continue to monitor the impacts on our budget. So for now, we need to be patient. As this event unfolds, better information will lead to better decision-making down the road. During the waiting period, we will begin to hold 2-on-2 meetings with council to take a closer look at all of the budget issues most affected and to obtain council's direction on how to proceed. And as always, we will continue to provide updates at future council meetings as we receive further information on the impacts to our community. And with that, I am open to questions, Your Honor.
Thank you for the presentation, Carol, and thank you to JD, to your entire staff for working on this and being thoughtful about your addressing this obvious shortfall. Does the council, do you have anything you wanted to add, JD, before I turn it over to questions? How about the council? Anybody have any questions? Alderman Witt?
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate it. I know that there's a lot going on, and to kind of work through this with a lot of variables, a lot of unknowns, and those sorts of things. I really appreciate you putting it together. It worries me quite a bit on what the gap is right now with all the unknowns. I know that there's a lot of like, well, we may be eligible for this and that, and the state has already said that they're going to be paying us late. So if I'm a betting man, I'm going to bet that the state is going to have their hand in any pocket of anything that may or should be coming down the pipe to us. So I'm not super confident that any of those funds we're going to see what we probably should. And so my concern is how do we fill this gap? You know, we've already had some problems over the last few years of, I know this year we were kept the same by Moody's, but previous to that, we've been downgraded a couple of times, reducing our cash position and those sorts of things, I think is something that's going to make that worse. But I do recognize that these is for rainy days, and it is a rainy day. But I didn't see anything in there. I mean, kicking the can down the road for CIP projects and all that kind of stuff, that's just deferred maintenance. I mean, those things, they still need to be done, and they're not really cost savings. And so I'm just looking for, was there anything that staff came up with that were actual cost savings that you just decided, we're not going to include this because either policy-wise you guys didn't agree with it or didn't think that it was enough? I mean, I'm assuming that there were other ideas that came up, but just weren't included in this.
The biggest thing that we were looking at was to fill that short-term gap. And we did take a look at the fund balances, that line of credit to kind of help fill that void. And we want to use those 2-on-2 meetings to discuss further the potential impact of digging deeper. Because if the cash balances or fund balances aren't the first priority or the line of credit, we absolutely need to be taking a deeper dive into the current levels of services. And we've had that discussion with the department heads that could be an option here down the road. And so they've already begun to look at those types of things in anticipation of us getting together with these 2-on-2s.
You know, Carol, I think that would be very helpful, kind of like our contingency plan of having our response already established. And so if it were to happen, we already know how we're going to react to it, I think would be productive. Alderman Parker, I think you wanted to make a comment or ask a question?
Yeah, I did see, Carol, thanks a lot for, putting this all together. This is really, a tough situation. Hey, welcome to the team. And no, it is a tough situation. You did a great job. One thing I missed in there, and JD, you might be able to speak more to this. What is going on? What are we doing with the library? You know, I didn't see where there were any cuts there whatsoever. I don't even know. I don't think they're open, are they? Do we have people working there? What's going on?
So I think they have staff working there. Carol can probably speak to a little bit more of the specifics on the financial part of where their cuts were. I don't think Brian's connected with us tonight, so I'm not sure if he is, if he could speak to it. There's probably 25%, maybe 26% of the employees that aren't there, but they're doing quite a bit of this business support outreach. They're activating with that. They are continuing to put materials away and do the different things of, I don't have the numbers this week that I had last week of the different resources that are coming in and going out, and they're leaving them I think is the term dwell time. They're leaving them sit for an appropriate amount of time for safety before they touch them and put them back away. But I'd probably feel more comfortable having Brian drill down on that list of the different things that the percentage of people that are there are doing, and then Carol can probably talk in a little more detail about this specific line item cuts if you wanted to do that tonight, or if you want to do that during the 2-on-2s.
Carol, do you think that you could have for the 2-on-2s individual breakdown of what all the different departments are doing? So
I'm sorry, Your Honor, you cut out right when you, can you say that one more time?
Do you think for the 2-on-2s, you could be prepared to share with the council members what kind of cuts the individual departments are doing? So I understand that general funds is experiencing the biggest funding source restriction, but what are all of the departments doing to address that overall cut to revenue? I think is what Alderman Parker is kind of saying. Alderman Parker, you're not saying that. What are you saying?
No. I don't know who's doing what is, I guess, my point. But I have follow up to that to the library situation. The only reason I do it, I ask this because I'm this quasi member of the board, the non-voting member that gets to go and sit at all the meetings. But so we identified, Alderman Schoonmaker a month ago identified perhaps a pot of money that they have sitting there for building acquisition. And I was wondering if perhaps during this time it would be appropriate for them to take over the debt service payment on the library through that fund.
And I do need Brian to address that. My understanding is that there is an endowment upwards of $900,000. There's actually 3 of them. The other 2 are smaller, totaling about $100,000. But there are restrictions on the spending ability on those funds. And they're restricted to the point of it's only a percentage a year that can actually be drawn down. And so if we were going to look at those, I think that would be something for our legal counsel to take a look at. Also looking at the library's budget, when they submitted their revisions, as you know, almost 100% of their budget, or the majority, is people. And so the main flexibility, I mean, they have all of their fixed operating costs, and then their book budget's the biggest one. So as they are closed for this period of 30 days, and they've had lost revenues of book fines and those types of things, they did reduce their book expenditure level accordingly, which amounted to, is just below $100,000. I think it was about $75,000. But we can address, I agree, Mayor, I am happy to provide by department when we meet on these 2-on-2s, a lot more detail by every department, because we've got a lot of detail I can certainly provide.
It seems like the council and staff are comfortable with the moratorium on hires. Am I accurately depicting that? So
yes.
We have a resolution, I think, that Dirk has prepared just to kind of formalize that plan. Dirk, do you want to give us a little background on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So Carol mentioned it was part of the discussion that's been ongoing among the leadership team about how to respond to this. And so there's the unique structure for how hiring is done in Moline. After the 92 referendum, not quite a traditional budget control and yet not quite a city manager control. You walk this middle lane. So to get some control over that, I walked this through with the resolution which controls the personnel code, which imposes the moratorium on hiring. There are obvious positions where we need to make progress in the future, whether that's the interim city administrator, the assistant city administrator. JD has some that he'll talk to you about in the 2-on-2. What the resolution does tonight is it simply says, other than the candidates that are in the queue for fire and police, and I'll talk about that in a second, there's a hiring freeze. The state of Illinois issued theirs today. They've got a hiring freeze. You're not the first municipality to formally implement a hiring freeze. Several others are ahead of you in that respect. And others have actually gone even further in terms of their job force. But what this does tonight is it halts any seasonal, any part-time, any of the stuff we'd normally be doing now to get ready for the upcoming changeover from a school year to other services we're providing. So all of that is on hold. And then for all exceptions, we'd have to come to you and get approval to move forward with some hiring. And there are jobs, I think, that different departments want to post, and they'll be making their case for that. If I've got that right, JD, there's some that are needed for different things, both US EPA compliance or some other things like that. So they'll make their case, and then this gives you the opportunity to steer the wheel.
So does the resolution have anything to address internal hires or internal promotions?
The resolution doesn't say anything about promotions. No, not at the moment.
Is an internal promotion the same thing as a hire of a different position or not?
No, this would be about actually adding new people to it. We can expand the resolution to freeze all promotions if that's the will of the council, but I would need to put that language in. It'd need to be a resolution as amended if you wanted to go ahead and approve that.
Anyone have any questions? Or Alderman Parker?
Your Honor, I make a motion that we adopt this resolution and add the language to halt promotions until I think this order is rescinded by the City Council. I believe I read it right.
All right, and that would apply across all departments, including fire and police?
Yes.
The promotions? Okay.
So the restriction on the promotions would then put a halt on internal hiring for different positions as well? Or
Yes,
that's already in the motion, or already in the resolution?
Well, I'm not sure which, it's broad language, and I don't know what the specific situation you're asking me about. A promotion from one rank to another in police with added language will stop that, but I'm not sure is there an internal position that's posted that we're hiring from within?
We just have positions that are open right now that could be hired from internal candidates. We have positions that are open. It could be an external hire or an internal hire. So I'm assuming with the restriction on promotions.
Well, then I'll add language that says no open positions will be filled without council consent.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion. Alderman Parker, would you restate your motion just so that Janine's got it?
Sure. It's to adopt the motion that Dirk outlined to us, adding and also putting a moratorium on promotions.
So if I may, I believe the motion is to approve the resolution, amending it to include no promotions, a moratorium on all promotions across all departments, and to make it clear that the no hiring moratorium applies to any open positions currently posted.
Or
yes.
New open positions so no open positions would be posted in
Right.
the future during this time.
Your Honor, this is Alderman Waldron.
Hi, Alderman Waldron.
Do we, JD, do we have any contractual obligations for promotions in police and fire?
I can't speak to them specifically. I'd have to ask the chiefs too, but I know they do have some in the ranks that, you know, require, but I can't speak to the contract language specifically, Alderman.
Couldn't we, excuse me, this is Alderman Schoonmaker.
Alderman Schoonmaker?
Couldn't we deal with those on a case-by-case basis if they came up?
Exactly.
Your Honor.
Council obligation would be a pretty compelling argument.
Right. Yeah, and if you decided that you wanted to breach, well, fine. You can always breach, but hey, that's Rule 1 of contract law. But we're not doing that. So yes, we would come to you and say, we have a contractual obligation under the collective bargaining agreement. This needs to happen, and you could give it its imprimatur. This is to just make sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction. Nobody gets lost in trying to do what we're trying to do.
Any other comments or questions? Alderman Potter?
Your Honor, Alderman Potter. I just, I think it's a little bit of an overreach from where I'm sitting with regard to a blanket no promotions. I think that these, what I call them, the schoolmakers, I think it would be better if the chiefs and the administrator brought these to us individually and we can talk about them rather than just even any of them.
You cut out a little bit, Alderman Potter, but I believe the resolution allows that. So if there is an instance where staff is feeling that a promotion or a hire is warranted, they would be able to come to the council and we would just talk about it. Is that your understanding, everyone?
That's how I'm going to write it.
Are you comfortable with that, Alderman Potter, that provision is already in place?
Kind of.
Right, everything that's frozen, hiring, except for, I just wanted to make it clear that the people at the academies are not included. Why? Because the municipalities are all poaching each other's academy candidates because there's such a desperate need for it. So I didn't want there to be any question about Moline's job offer is suspect now, why don't you come work for us? So that's why that's exception there. Everything else that's subject to the moratorium, hiring in all of the departments, the promotion and the posting of new jobs and the fulfilling of any job position that's open, all of those are subject to council approval. That's how it'll be written, to be sure. I'll write it here in 2 seconds. So,
JD?
Yeah, and for the clarification, what we planned on doing is, I have a list of these 21 open positions, and there are a few ones that I want to talk to council about the reason I think that we would want to move forward filling them once we see, you know, what's moving forward, and like a retirement that's coming up here in the fire department that I know, you know, will require a promotion or a whole lot of overtime or whatever. I'll just make those different arguments about those specific positions when we meet.
Great. And so I'm assuming they would come before council then if there was a list of things that would be accepted.
Yep.
They'll come before council as they come up. Alderman Waldron, did you have something you wanted to say? No? Anybody else? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. So Dirk, I'm assuming this resolution it wasn't in the agenda, was it? It was just under the informational, so it'll come back before the council next week?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, and now I'd like to open it up to public comment. Anyone in the public like to address the council this evening? Hearing none, I'd like to close out of the committee of the whole and go into the council agenda. Alderman Wendt, will you be providing an invocation this evening? Was that a yes? Alderman Wendt, will you do an invocation this evening?
Sorry, I was on mute. How about no for tonight?
Okay, so we're going to go into the council agenda this evening, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag,
States of America,
the United States,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Okay, that was super funny. For the people that are here, our experience was a little bit like drunk. Pledge of allegiance. Such a laugh. But we did good. Okay, so I'd like to call for roll.
We did good.
just believe.
Roll call.
Sorry. Alderman Williams,
Present.
Parker,
Present.
Wentz,
Present.
Potter,
Present.
Moyer,
Present.
Schoonmaker,
Present.
Waldron,
Present.
Berg. Present. Your Honor, I request approval of Committee of the Whole and Council meeting minutes of March 24th, 2020, appointments made during Committee of the Whole on April 7th, 2020, and February financial report. Resolutions. Council Bill 1041-2020, a resolution authorizing certain minutes and portions of minutes of executive sessions of the City Council to be maintained as confidential until further reviewed by the City Council, and authorizing the remainder of said executive session minutes referenced herein to be made available for public inspection. Council Bill 1042-2020, a resolution authorizing the seating of 2020 Home Rule Volume Cap. Council Bill 1043-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Centennial Contractors of the Quad Cities Incorporated for project number 1340, 2020 asphalt resurfacing in the amount of $1,084,018.25. Council Bill 1044-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to accept 2 deeds of dedication for street right-of-way and 3 permanent utility and drainage easements to allow construction to proceed on the 15th Avenue portion of project number 1333, 2020 trenchless water main project.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, I believe it was, and a second by Alderman Moyer. Roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Potter. I hear that.
I think you're on mute, Alderman Potter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
Motion carries.
Non-consent agenda resolutions. Council Bill 1035-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Davenport Electric Contract Company for project number 1339, video detection systems installation in the amount of $51,749.49.
Motion to approve 1035-2020?
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, and the second, I believe, was by Alderman Went. Any discussion? Roll call, please. Oh, Alderman Parker.
Your Honor, just for clarity for the rest of the council, I don't know if you received this or not, but the in-ground wires will not pick up cars once we do the road diet and change the lanes over. So this is what's necessary. We've already invested $110,000 in the equipment. So although we're really trying to watch every penny, I think it just makes sense to move forward with this. And it gives us a good opportunity to determine how road diets work also at their best.
Any other discussion? Are we ready for roll call? Roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Nay.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
That motion carries.
Council Bill 1045-2020, a resolution approving benefits granted by the City of Moline to City of Moline emergency responders in lieu of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act.
Motion to approve 1045-2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Went. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Council Bill 1046-2020, a resolution designating additional revolving loan funds for relief to Moline businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency.
Motion to approve 1046-2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Wendt. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wendt?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Council Bill 1047-2020, resolution establishing a City of Moline continuity of operations plan for the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency.
Motion to approve 1047-2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, second by Alderman Williams, I believe it was. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any discussion on this item?
Just for clarification, this is as amended, correct?
Yes, that's what I meant.
And that's what I meant. Sorry about that.
We all meant it. We have a consensus. Is there any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wendt?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Council Bill 1048-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to adopt the updated City of Moline Community Development Block Grant Policies and Procedures Manual.
Motion to approve 1048-2020.
Is that amended?
Second.
So,
What did we end
um,
up doing with that?
I don't, yeah, I'm sorry. I need a point of clarification. JD,
I gotta go
lead
back.
on this?
So I think Kay has sent out some information to you, I think maybe over the weekend or Monday morning, that was in response to this. Kay, had you had any questions, or did anybody have any questions on that?
You're on mute, KJ.
You're muted, Kay. There we go.
Okay,
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't receive any questions or any feedback at all. I sent that like Sunday evening to you guys.
could you summarize the changes for us?
Basically, on the homebuyers program, I gave you the comparison of the growth program compared to our program. Basically, the differences were, if I recall correctly, with growth, you have to work for one of the approved or in the circle dairy employers. Here, you just have to buy a house in Moline, and there's no prerequisition requirement for that. And then on the other item, I moved it to $1,000 down, and then to the 8-hour course, as discussed 2 meetings ago, for the homebuyers program. And then for the rent and utility program, I gave you a comparison of what Project Now does, what Salvation Army does, what Kankakee does, and then there was one other agency on there. A lot of those programs are multiple counties. For example, Project Now, it's multiple counties where our program will just be the City of Moline residents. But I mean, pretty much everyone has assistance for heat, for utilities, if you will, and then for rent. A lot of them have assistance for your first month's rent when you go to rent a unit, where we don't offer that. We just offer rental assistance and utility assistance and a one-time use for both at a 12-month calendar period.
So
And then I'm sorry, Mayor.
the discussion that we had last time was how do we avoid an individual from going to one resource to another? And so we were looking for some collaboration with the other entities. Is that, Alderman Nguyen, I feel like you said something about that last time.
I did. That was a concern, well, I guess on 2 levels. Was one, if somebody worked through each one of the places, was there some kind of communication between the marketplaces? And also, are we just duplicating a service and staffing for something that's already being out there where we could just fund them doing it?
Again, like with Project Now, Alderman Went, they offer it to multi-counties. So we could not fund them for that. We could not pay for their staffing for that. It has to be directly for the city of Moline.
Did we ask them and they said no, we won't take that and earmark it for Moline residents?
No, I have not asked that question directly. One thing with Project Now, I've been in several discussions with them on other items, is they're going through a transition. They're getting ready to have a new director as of May 1st. So when I talked to my counterpart over there, you know, basically a lot of things have been put on hold until it transitions under the new director over there, beginning on May 1st. As far as Salvation Army, I do get a copy of who they have assisted, how many times they have assisted. I do get that information from Salvation Army for Moline residents, so we could avoid duplication there.
So we don't have a motion on the floor right now. I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I thought I did make a motion. I apologize. So, motion to approve.
We had one yet.
Sorry. So we have a motion by Alderman Parker and a second by who recalls making a second?
Alderman Went.
Alderman Went, second.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the approval of these changes? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
Thank you. So before
Thank you.
1040, that's significantly different than it is presented here.
Yeah, yes, and we're going to ask you to have that tabled indefinitely. Dirk and I would.
Oh, okay. So there is a request by staff to pull this from the agenda? Or how do you want to handle that, Dirk?
Table it indefinitely, because we want to go through the options with you and then we'll bring it back to the
Okay.
table. And we
So I'd entertain a motion to table.
1049.
Motion to table 1049, 2020.
We have a motion by Alderman Moyer and a second by Alderman Parker to table this item indefinitely. Roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Yay.
Berg.
Aye.
Williams. Parker.
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
Motion carries. This item's tabled.
I think that is, yeah, this evening, Your Honor.
Fantastic. I'd now like to open it up for miscellaneous council business. Is there anything on Alderman Williams' side? Alderman Parker.
Got a couple things, JD. The moratorium that we put on hiring, I know we're going to vote on it again next week, but in the meantime, is it safe to assume that you're not going to allow any hiring between now and then?
That's correct.
Thank you. Second of all, how are we handling commissions under the council and how they meet? I mean, I've had a few of them put in cancellation notices that I'm a member of, and I don't know, are we supposed to not meet or are we supposed to meet electronically? How's that handled?
So the release of the Open Meetings Act, or the expansion of the Open Meetings Act to address the COVID-19, applies for all of our commissions as well. So our park board, our library board, any other Open Meetings Act eligible or required commissions underneath them can now do all of the same provisions that we can. If they have restrictions in their bylaws, I'm assuming that there would need to be them addressing that like we've addressed it. So Dirk, do you want to address that?
And I've started working with the mayor on this. We need to adopt a supplement to our policy that's in place about remote meetings. to do this and that as we're doing them now. We really need to catch up, but I'm not worried about it. That's why it's not here tonight as any sort of emergency. It'll probably be on the next meeting as an adoption of a new policy that talks about how the public can remote in, get their public comments ahead of time, encourage them to do it that way. And so we've had to refine our process, and then the policy is working hand in glove with that, and I've been working with the mayor on it. So they'll be in a new policy, but everybody has to follow those same guidelines. They have to, if they're gonna meet remotely, they have to post how the public can watch, or public can send in their comments ahead of time, all that kind of thing. So they're all subject to the same policy, just as the mayor said, and we're gonna refine the policy.
So, I mean, I'm looking for staff's leadership on this. I don't want to give the impression to the commissions and the boards that they shouldn't be meeting. This is quite a critical time to be addressing the changing environment that we're dealing with. So, JD, what are your thoughts? Should I be reaching out to my board chairs? Manage that.
We can manage it. And
I'll take the message, Mayor, with JD, because I need to educate them on, this is how you got on meeting remotely and how you make it. They forget to take the vote ahead of time, that people can all participate remotely. We have to do that for the minutes. That's an important record-keeping thing during this time. So I'll work with JD to reach out to the board chairs and let them know that's how they need to do it, and to remind them they're not shut down. They have work to do.
Anybody else?
Your Honor.
Or Alderman, what? Alderman
Waldron. Or JD, would it be possible for like the park board to meet in council chambers and use the same system that we're using right now?
I didn't catch all that.
He'd like to host park board meetings in here, or any of the other entities, that for them to be able to utilize the remote access.
It's a good idea.
Sure. Yep.
Good idea, Alderman Waldron. Yeah.
I didn't know they didn't meet here.
Public Works. Yeah, Public Works, or the library board meets in the library conference room. If any of those entities don't have their own video conferencing capabilities, we can definitely host them in here. They would ask that those commissions and the boards are respecting the 6 feet distancing rule.
So
if they're going to use this
the
property.
one exception to all of this is going to be Plan Commission, because they have public hearings, and public hearings fraught with a little more due process problems. So to the extent that we can, we're postponing those if they can't have a physical distant, as you are here, present in the room. Just because public hearings come with this greater level of due process. We're looking for guidance on those kinds of things. Everybody across the nation is struggling with the public hearing as opposed to a public meeting. So there's no easy answer. Plan Commission might be the one thing we wrestle with them a little bit on.
Alderman Went?
I guess along with that, we had made a motion regarding moratorium for the outdoor sheds being built in B3 and B4 districts. Is that moving forward with the Plan Commission, or has that been kind of put on hold?
Jeff, can you speak to that?
Yes, and I don't know if Chris Mathias is still on. He can add to or take my place, but Chris has reached out, had conversation with the applicant, has advised them how to file for the PUD application that council sent back to Plan Commission. At this point, at least as of either Monday or Friday, the applicant had not filed the PUD application as of yet.
I wasn't so much concerned about the PUD with that specific zoning change. I was concerned more about the moratorium that we kind of discovered that those outdoor storage sheds could be built on John Deere Road and those sorts of things, and to get that moratorium in place before we wind up with an application that we don't want.
Yes, I'm sorry, Alderman Went. I had my head in a different gear there. I believe Plan Commission is awaiting guidance per Dirk's previous comments on how to move forward with the public hearing. And Dirk, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, we'll get a public hearing together to do, put one in. There, it's not gonna, the good news is no application for one is gonna happen at a public hearing before we have it on the moratorium. So the moratorium's gonna win.
Thank you.
Any other aldermen have anything? Alderman Potter?
Yes, Your Honor, saw where there was a picture, I believe, from Alderman Waldron regarding activity and looked like Stevens Park, and they're going to take down the rims. I've also noticed that a number of playgrounds around town, although not heavily utilized, as the weather warms, I think they're going to be more utilized. In addition to that, I noticed a lot of people on the tennis courts. The United States Tennis Association has recommended against use of playing tennis during this time, and I would like to ask JD to have a conversation with folks and maybe put up some better signage around the playgrounds, reminding folks that the tape is maybe some signage saying it's illegal to be on the playgrounds or against the governor's orders, and also maybe even think of closing off the tennis courts so that they can't be utilized by groups.
So I think staff has the plan to remove the hoops, remove the nets, and remove the Frisbee golf courts.
Correct.
I'd like to also recommend that we restrict, we have some swings on some of our playground equipment to either lock those up or take them down. Anything that, if you could use your public works expertise on anything that we can temporarily disable to compel people to not use them, and then of course, signage and interaction, educational interaction. Is that all right, Alderman Potter?
That's excellent.
Anybody else? Anybody else in the council have any council business?
I have a comment. Alderman Williams gets the credit for the basketball at Stevens Park.
He does so appreciate credit. Okay, so I'd like to turn it over to staff. JD, do you have anything for us this evening?
I have a couple items, Your Honor. So you would, council had asked to table the item with the electrical installation at the water tower out at Oak Glen Home property. We submitted a request, a modification form is what the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity requires to request extensions in one-year increments. So we've got that done. We've got that request sent in, and they look at those on a case-by-case basis. So we don't know when they'll look at giving that extension to us, but it would be an extension for to the middle of 2021 instead of the end of 2020, what I originally told you, because they only do it in one-year increments.
I think that's better anyway.
Yeah. So, so I wanted to ask you to consider extended that table until we get an answer back from them on whether they'll give us, that extra year of time extension, because the table was until tonight to make that decision. I had just a 2-week table on that item.
Oh, okay, so the consideration, you think it's contingent on whether or not they'll allow us to extend it past the end of the year? We still had till the end of the year, didn't we?
We had until, I think it was the end of June.
Oh, okay. So, JD is looking to extend our motion to table until this evening.
Motion to extend the table for an indefinite time until we hear back.
Second.
So we have a motion from Alderman Parker to extend until we get a response, and a second by Alderman Went. All those in favor, please indicate. Oh, sorry, we gotta do roll call. Roll call.
Alderman Went,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer, Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg. Aye. Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you, JD. What else did you have?
So the other thing is Alderman Schoonmaker and Alderman Went, I think, had asked some questions on the when that water tower conversation took place, when we came about the condition of the tower. And I looked back through the minutes, and I know Tony and I actually didn't present that item. It was presented, looks like.
Nothing wrong with the audio.
It was an economic issue that was talked about with some economic development initiatives that were coming forward by that team. And then it was talked about by the folks in laws. They were working through the different intergovernmental agreement conversations with the folks at the county. And then it looks like the city administrator had
Don is aggressively muting you.
So anyway, I just want to say it looked like at one point there was a question. Tony was here to answer about the condition. Alderman Turner had asked about the condition of the tank, and Tony talked about repairs that needed to be made and need to be recoded, and he said it would need about approximately $350,000 at that point in time. I'm looking back at an internal communication that I had to where I spelled that out, and part of this was lined out in the grant application that I sent to them, and the references of that I think come from. There was an estimated cost of about $230,000 to recoat the tank within 2 to 3 years of when we put it in service. And then I had listed out on the same report that came on the tanks that the facilities weren't properly winterized, so damage from freezing, and that needed to be repaired. And then that we would want to bring up some of the standards, the safety standards, and that to bring it back in service on some current safety standards. And I listed those out and estimated that that would be about another $106,000. When we submitted this grant application, we said that we thought that could be done if we self-performed the work for about $60,000. So I can't quite tell from the minutes if that was articulated to council in the detail, but we talked about the improvements in that $350,000.
So I think it would be helpful if you could document what the projected repairs and improvements that need to take place in order to put it into operation now with everything that you know now.
Okay.
And get that out to council so that we don't feel like we're getting,
Sure. I guess I just, I felt I had to get an answer back to you on this.
I appreciate that, but
Okay.
would you agree, Alderman Schoonmaker, that'd be helpful to have JD send us out a memo of where we're at?
Certainly.
Thank
Okay.
you. So we can hit a little restart. I think we just want to have a clear understanding of how much investment we have in front of us. And so if you could give a thoughtful, not only what was presented before, and maybe you could mark it that this was already disclosed to the council, but these are some additional things that we need to consider
Yeah.
before we'd be able to put it into operation.
Okay.
Is that
And-
okay,
and-
everybody?
And then my last one was just that we're working on, I know that the request was to have us work on the South Moline Township, the fire costing project, and that for the activities that we do outside of our corporate limits. And I know you gave us some time to work on that, and I've got staff working on that. Carol's going to be redirected with her interest on the audit, starting with Monday, and kind of engage with that team. But I'm going to continue to moving that forward, and if it looks like we're going to be bumping up against the time limits that were given us, I may have to come back and ask for a little bit more time.
Great, thank you for working on that. I think that probably is important before everybody does their tax levies, if we're gonna make an adjustment, that everybody understands what's gonna fall in their court.
Okay.
How about any other staff? Does anyone else on staff have anything for us? Is Chief Snyder on the call? Snyder, is he out there?
He's in the other room.
Chief? From there? Chief? Just 1 minute, I just wanna get an update from Chief on how our ambulance calls are doing, how those folks are doing. Hi, Chief.
Good evening.
I was just hoping, if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the microphone so they all can hear you. I was hoping that maybe you could share with us how our our ambulance first responders are doing and what's happening there, and if we are able to support the calls that are coming in, or if you've seen any difference in?
Yeah, I can answer that. Over the last 3 weeks, we've seen a slight decline initially in calls for service for our ambulance, for EMS. Here in the last week, roughly, we've started to see a tick up back to slightly more normal levels for that. When the stay-at-home directive came out, it seemed like everybody just stayed at home and stayed out of trouble, and now that's kind of come back. We have transported, we're up to 5 positively diagnosed COVID-19 patients. We have several folks, actually we just instituted a department-wide policy, so everyone is doing self-checks every day, and we're monitoring those, documenting those, and we'll have those for our records. So far, nobody's experienced any COVID-19. We do have a few folks that are we're watching pretty closely, but other than that, everything's doing good.
So what's our policy, our internal policy for asking for our responders to be COVID-19 tested? Is it just if they demonstrate symptoms, or are we doing?
Yeah, they have, at this point, because of the number of tests that are available in the county, all we can do is have them tested when they present with symptoms. Our hope is in the future, not too distant future, that when more tests become available, first responders will be at the front of the line, and so we'll be able to get them tested. And we can test them in 2 different ways for COVID-19, and then also we can test them for antibodies that are present in their blood. And so that would indicate someone has been exposed, had it, recovered, and now they have an immunity. So 2 different ways.
Does anybody have any questions for Chief Snyder? Thank you for the update, Chief.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chief, when you said 5, did you mean 5 transports?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that's it for us tonight. Is there any further business? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you. Oh, did you have something, Alderman Witt?
No, good night. Great